Hey there, everybody. Didn't even realize we were live. I have a beautiful, beautiful sunny day outside and wanted to hang out and talk a little bit today about another amazing story, which I'm reading about, which is the plastic eating worm discovery. I don't know if you've seen this or not, but I saw on the news recently that they discovered a plastic eating worm, and it's a Kenyan mealworm. But so, well, first of all, I want to know what you think about that. What do you think about the idea that we should potentially use a mealworm to get rid of our plastics? Now, we're talking about putting an extremely poisonous chemical into something that's in nature. Now, it wouldn't be just all the mealworms going and living in you know like living in a landfill and all that. So what they would do is take the enzyme that is in the mealworm's stomach that allows him to be able to digest this particular form of plastic. So there's a lot of ethical questions here, and I'm really curious what everybody thinks about this. Now, for me, instantaneously, I say this is a terrible idea. And when you start to look into the information, it starts to show that it's a little bit not quite what the story says. So what happens is the mealworms, this one particular type of mealworm, can digest, it said, actually up to 11% of the plastics. Now, other worms that they've been trying to use for similar type of experiments can only break the plastics down to smaller bits. Now, these particular mealworms, they have a particular enzyme inside of their stomachs that allow them to break down the plastics. Now, this is what we would call a downstream solution. When we talk about problems in the environment, there are what we call upstream and then downstream solutions. So imagine a factory up here putting a bunch of chemical waste into the river, and the river's going down. And imagine that this company up here makes nurdles, and there's plastic nurdles, and there's a spill, and it gets into the river, and it goes all the way down, and it lands in this community here. The community that has to do the beach cleanup, the community that is there being affected, the community that's going to clean it up after the fact, that is what we call a downstream solution. Now, upstream solutions are solutions that are at the source. So to me, this seems like a very dangerous downstream solution. The idea of putting plastic toxins that we're trying to stop the spread of into natural beings. Now, it is just something is bound to go wrong. Great example is salmon. We have salmon aquaculture, say up in Washington, Alaska, those areas. There have been over and over and over issues where these genetically modified versions of salmon have escaped. Now they have all of these issues, because they're not natural. They're being bred for meat. So they have all these weird diseases and lesions and all these other problems that natural salmon do not. Then they go and then they spawn with the natural salmon. And then now we're having our natural salmon's populations destroyed. So taking something from nature, bringing it in, modifying it for our needs, it doesn't do any good because it's bound to break back out into nature and bound to mess up what nature is out there. And we have seen that with the salmon, and I think there's the potential of it having that same issue here with these worms. Now, they said, oh, we're not going to put the worms out everywhere. You can guarantee that if they start this method, they'll be selling them to people, probably small farmers. A lot of times farmers will use, say, ladybugs. You can buy ladybugs at farmers markets, and you release them into your garden, and they just go in and take care of everything. And they're like a natural pest resistance. There is a way that they're going to be selling these worms to places to try to remove plastic as a cheaper form of recycling. Now, these mealworms not only are eaten by birds, but a lot of other animals love them, and a lot of smaller animals, beetles. So it could potentially infect the entire ecosystem, just like a microplastic. So these are just bigger versions of microplastic problem. So to me, this is not a good solution at all. It's not interesting, and it's moving in the wrong direction. It's moving towards a downstream solution instead of an upstream solution. So I'd be really curious to see what everybody thinks about it. It's an interesting, odd piece of eco news that's happening right now. So we want to come in, we want to get live, we want to talk about all these different topics that are going on every couple days and check in and see what everybody's thinking. So let me know, what do you think? Do you think the bugs are a good idea? Or do you think the plastic eating bugs is going the wrong direction? So I'm really curious to see what everybody has to say. And if you've heard any crazy news stories as well, let us know so we can talk a little bit more about those and see if we can't talk together. So I hope everybody had a great talk today. It was really fun. Oh, 1 second. It was really, really fun to be able to talk about this really interesting, bizarre twist in the search for recycling. So this will be ultimately potentially the future, you know. So do you think that adding plastics to mealworms is the way to go? Would love to hear your thoughts. Thank you everybody for joining. I cannot wait to do more talks and more chats live. Talk to you soon. Well, here we go.